All right. Hello, everybody on YouTube. Welcome to, I guess, the first episode of, I don't know, I want to do this like podcast series where I talk to my friends, my students, and people I'm close with, and fellow copywriters, and just show you guys that this whole copywriting thing is possible. It's real. It's not a scam. People are actually making money. So, hopefully it inspires you as well. So today I want to introduce you guys to Tiana Asperjan, who's a good friend and a student of mine. And we've been friends and slash have like this mentor-mentee relationship since October last year, which was 2021. So a pretty incredible story. So I'd love to, so in October, when you came to me, you were at one place, and then now you're at a totally different spot. So would you like to introduce yourself and kind of share the changes that's been going on since October?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm a freelance copywriter, and I work with companies that I'm very proud to work with at this point. If you're in the space, you might know them, Iroli and Paleo Hacks, and a woman named Carly Donovan. So to get to that point, though, yes, in October, I was not in that place at all. I had just, when I started in the industry, I was working for one person as a marketing director slash copywriter. So it was like, I was just learning the basics of copy. And I think I was making like 5K like Canadian a month. And my financial goals obviously like grew from that point. But when we met, I had actually just been fired from that job. And so I didn't know what I was going to do next. And I actually had no idea how to be a freelance copywriter at all. And that was really, really scary. And yes, I learned like a lot of skills, and I got some really great opportunities that allowed me to kind of like jump forward really quickly. But the real leverage point in hindsight that I'm seeing was like, it was the mindset stuff that actually like propelled me forward faster. And yeah, and now, I mean, numbers help people. So I'm making about 15 to 17K a month at this point, since I met Ning. And yeah, and now I'm working towards actual offer ownership, which was something I always wanted to do. And I'm just kind of working through a lot of mindset stuff that kind of stands in the way of that. And that's where I'm at now.
Cool. Yeah. So on this YouTube channel, I've talked a lot about just like copy specific stuff, how to write copy, this stuff. And I haven't actually done any content on mindset stuff. So would you like to give a little primer and like, how did you first encounter the mindset stuff, and what is your like interpretation of it?
Sure. I was really thinking about this morning, and I think it's worth going back a little ways in my journey, like before I even knew what copywriting was, and just like feeling unhappy doing what I was doing. Because the only way that I made it from that point to this point, to a place where I'm much happier doing what I'm doing, and I feel much more connected with what I authentically want to do, that that was all mindset. That was all mindset work, and it's all playing together. So my professional life actually started as an actor. So I went to acting school, and when I graduated, I was just like, I guess I'm just gonna audition and hope for a big break. And that was a difficult life. You don't make a lot of money, and your whole world depends on like, you walk into a room and it's like, do people think I'm impressive enough, or beautiful enough, or talented enough, or whatever enough for this role? And I was young when I was doing this. Like I started, I did it all through like being a kid, but then also through those fundamental years from like 17 to, I don't know, like 23, 24, or whatever. It's like that period of life really like lodged a lot of mindset stuff in kind of my psyche and the way that I operated. So I had to learn to move past that. And if I hadn't gone through some lessons that came after that before copy, it would have been very hard to take on the opportunities that I have now. So after, so I was an actor for 7 years. At a certain point, I realized like, this is just not for me. I had bigger ambitions, and I was like, I think it would be nice to know what it's like to make some money. And I tried to, my first exposure to like an entrepreneurial attitude was when I met this this guy who was starting what he called like an acting empire. Like he really wanted to build this like worldwide acting empire, and he had had a lot of success. And he talked to me about this is funny, Ning, because we haven't actually talked about this stage of life that much, and like you don't know that about this experience, but he had this very like this big vision of like millions of dollars, and we were going to have, you know, houses all over the world, and we were going to have these, and I was going to be like the CEO of this company, and blah blah blah. And at the time, it was like the first time that anyone had really told me that that was possible. And so that like opened my world to going, oh, actually, so I can have that, and that's a real possibility. And then that kind of like, you know, started to open my mind, because before that, as an actor, I was really like, money is bad, and like money is the antithesis of art, and you know, I had all these other mindset things. So that was like the first stage. I needed to like see that and go through that. That experience ended up being a very bad one. I shouldn't even call it a bad one, because I learned like a lot of lessons from that.
How was it bad?
Yeah. So he's a terrible business person. He is. It's just like objectively, he made really bad decisions, and he was really I'm not even shy about saying this, because it just objectively was like he did not treat me well. He did not treat other people well. He had made a lot of mistakes, and I learned from that. I learned from seeing somebody who had gone through life and made a lot of mistakes, lost a lot of relationships, and I saw exactly how I did not want to how I didn't want to operate, right, on a personal level and in a business, and seeing how that doesn't work, right? And it's about like there's something else there. So coming out of that, there was actually like there's, you know, some things happened. It was a very like traumatic experience, like realistically, and I had to work through a lot of that. And so over the next like 2 to 3 years, it was like very I had a lot of like, I was very drained. Like my confidence was completely drained, right? Like I just didn't have any sense of like, I am worthy, I am capable, I am smart enough, I am blah, blah, blah. So it was like, I had to like push through all those barriers. And in some ways, I think I'm still working through a lot of those things, not because of this experience exclusively, but because of also the acting experience plus this kind of.
So when you say some traumatic things happen, I mean, you can explain however much you want to explain, but was there some weird stuff?
Yeah, I won't go into it, except that like it wasn't right, and it should have happened, and it was it just wasn't
okay.
It wasn't a positive experience.
Okay.
And I was young, and I just didn't have any sense of like a voice to say like, this is not what I want. This is not how I want to operate. This is not like the way I want to engage with other people. It put me in kind of like a bad position. It sort of ruined other relationships for me. And so it was, it was a lot of learning happened from that experience. So on the other side of that, it really did feel like an escape from that when I decided like, okay, I'm not going to be involved with this anymore. It did feel like I remember sitting down to like have the conversation. I was like so scared, but I decided to leave. I essentially escaped this thing. But on the other side of that, like I said, my confidence was drained, and I didn't know what to do next. So I kind of like stumbled into working in tech, and I took a chance on something called UX design, which is user experience design. I thought, oh, that sounds like creative. It sounds like something I could do, and it sounds like it's a pretty low entry to barrier. Or what is that? And barrier to entry?
Barrier to entry, sure.
So yeah, I took this like accelerated boot camp program. And yeah, in the tech world, like you can move up quickly. And so within a year, I had like a 9-to-5 job at this really substantial agency that I thought was very impressive that I did that, right? And
Cool. Mm-hmm.
like you and I have a lot of the same scripts around like I have to be impressive, I have to be smart, other people have to see that I'm good, otherwise I'm not good at all. And like
yeah, so I'll interject a little bit here. When Tiana's saying scripts, we have this language with the mindset work that I do with copywriters where scripts are like little software programs that you run that you learn in your childhood. So for example, if your parents are always pushing you to be impressive in some way, you'll pick that up and use that script in your adult life for whatever other else. For me, for example, I had to be impressive at school, and like my parents are always trying to push me to get into Harvard, to get good grades, and there was a lot of pressure on that. And I always felt like I had to be a trophy for them to show off to their friends. So I carried that into everything I did in my adult life. And it's, Tiana's mentioning how we both grew up with similar parenting styles, so we both had scripts like that.
Yeah. So it was a lot of that needed to be worked through and still work through. Like we talk about this stuff all the time, right? It's like there's like, how do you kind of actually push through those things so it's not stopping you from taking the action that you actually want to take, or living the life that you actually want to, that makes you feel good. So yes, I did this tech thing for 3 years, and awesome company, awesome people, great opportunity, but I just was so misaligned. And like, I didn't really have that language, but I knew that I was misaligned. Like that was the distinct feeling. Like I just knew that I was like, ooh, there's like, it's like square peg round hole. Like I was like trying to fit into this world that like I just hated. Like I hated waking up in the morning and having to go to somebody else's space. I hated having to like sit at my desk and work. I hated having like a manager, like having to like pass everything through this person. And I found it really difficult. And in hindsight, I'm like, okay, what was actually happening was that like, this was all like basically poking at all of the scripts that I've ever had. It was like that atmosphere was just kind of like a boiling point for that. So at that point, I had my sister is actually in direct response marketing world, and she had launched a product at that point, but I didn't really know what she did. I just knew she worked online, and I was like, I don't know, is she scamming people online? Like I have no idea, right? Like from the outside, you just don't know. And I'm pretty sure that's like what many of my friends think I do right now, which is a common theme in the internet marketing world. So I was very resistant to learning about it, but I met somebody who she worked with and works with is Mike Zhang, and he owns a company called Applied Science Nutrition, and he became a real mentor for me. And I think he just saw that I was unhappy. He saw potential in me, and I'm super grateful for the fact that he like painstakingly was like just fed me little like, maybe just try this, maybe just write this little bit of copy, maybe just read this book, maybe just transcribe this VSL. And he really like was so patient with me, and so appreciative of that period of time, because it is like one of those spaces where it's like almost like seeing inside the matrix, but you need to meet that person who like hands you the pill, like you.
Otherwise, I like that.
If you don't, you'll never actually see the opportunity there, and you'll never be able to walk through the door. So thank God for him, because he really like wanted me to walk through that door. And
you gotta meet your Morpheus.
Yeah, there you go. And then I eventually did do that. I started going to conferences with them without really knowing what anything was. And I met like, so funny now, because my first thing that I went to was like affiliate summit in Vegas. And I met like Amber Spears and Emily Lark and Todd Lamb and like all these people who now I know who they are. But at the time I was like, hi, I'm Tiana, I'm a UX designer and I like copy. Like it's like, and now, you know, now I know them on a more intimate level, but yeah, it just is really funny. And so I was kind of like going through these like weird experiences of just like fumbling my way through what direct response was. And Mike was like, transcribe these 20 VSLs, read these books, do all this stuff. Eventually he was like, okay, write a VSL for me. And he like, we did that together. And I kind of like learned the foundations of copy through him. And then eventually that turned into, okay, well, I need a marketing director. So leave your 9 to 5 and come and work for me. And you know, you can learn to launch products online. And that's what I did. And I genuinely loved it. And it was like, it was great. And I did it for like, I think a year and a half, and I learned a ton of stuff. And I wrote some really bad copy, and which you have to do. And but then I wrote, you know, so like it got a little better every time. But it was really cool because then I got this like really holistic perspective of like, you know, not just copy, but I was also like, okay, I'm writing this piece of copy, but I'm also like building out the entire funnel. Like I'm responsible for doing that. So I'm like seeing where it fits in. I'm seeing like how the copy plays with all the rest of the gears. And that was like, I think that was a really super advantageous for me. So that's one that, I mean, I would definitely recommend like trying to put yourself in a position like that.
Yeah, like that's the in-house versus freelancing kind of.
Yes.
There's like an advantage to being in-house because you get to see how a business operates instead of just handing Google Docs back and forth, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, you have your hands on the data, you're actually like watching the sales come in, you're seeing actually how things are performing, you're seeing like logistically how complicated everything is. And it just gives you a lot of like respect for the offer owner too. And for the media buyer, for everyone that you're working with, it's just like, it really changes your perspective. Definitely. So yeah, I did that for a year and a half. And then I joined Copy Accelerator, which is like a big mastermind where you get to like, you know, you learn copy, but then you also like meet a lot of other copywriters and met a lot of people in the community. And that's how I met you.
So for people who don't know, I used to coach for Copy Accelerator. They started hiring coaches, I think the second year or something, and they brought in one-on-one coaches, and I was the first one-on-one coach, and that's how Tiana and I met. She signed up for a call, and we wrote some copy for a tanning product, which is really cool. So yeah, and that was great. And so at that point, it was like I was kind of learning to write. So Mike, that position was not needed at the company anymore, and that was really kind of tragic for me because I had just spent a lot of money on this mastermind. And so I was really freaked out because now, you know, I didn't know how to run a freelancing business. I didn't think I could run a freelancing business. I was like, oh, I don't know. The words run your own business was like really freaky to me, even though I like wanted it, but I just was like, ooh, that's like, I'm not capable of that. I can't work that hard. I don't know how to do that. Lot of mindset stuff in there. So another moment in life where I was just grateful for actually being like pushed out of the nest. And I think he knew that too. I think he was like, it's time for you to like, you know, you can do this and go little birdie, fly. Yeah.
I think there was that was definitely a piece of it. But yeah, so yeah, I didn't really have anything. And then I did get like a really amazing opportunity that launched me into a space where I was like meeting other people at a much higher level. And then that's actually how I got the gig with Irali, and how I met a lot of people in the industry who helped me out. And yeah, at that time I was writing about the tanning product for a woman named Carly Donovan, who was also a very like early mentor of mine, someone I just really looked up to. And I got that contract, and now I continue to write with her, and we're doing a lot more work together. And that's like, So that's really exciting. The tanning thing went really well.
Top 3 on ClickBank or something, right?
Yeah, well, it was in the top 5 products to look out for this year, affiliate offers to look out for this year. So
cool.
We're basically saying this offer is doing really well, affiliates, you should consider sending for this. So yeah, which is really cool. Yeah. So yeah, and then so at that point though, it was like, okay, I have like some experience writing some copy. But the next phase of that was like, I knew that I needed like a one-on-one coach, because I was like, I can keep like, learning from a little bit from this person, a little bit from this person, and like maybe this person will give me some feedback on stuff, but I needed somebody to like see, like have a more intimate relationship with my copy and be like, okay, what are your habits? What are your like, what are you overall kind of like missing? Like, what are the gaps for you? And then I think you just posted on Facebook that you were like, hey, I'm taking on one-on-one clients. And because we had that one call, and it was like, and it was so helpful, and I had immediately like understood the way that you spoke about copy. And because of that, it was like such an obvious choice for me to be like, yes. So I think there is like you have to find a mentor and a coach who like you genuinely click with, where like you speak the same language, you understand the way that they communicate. And it's just like, when it really resonates with you, it's like, that was the most valuable possible use of my time, money, energy at that time. And then from there, like when we started working together, it was like, I felt like I had all the pieces. And then it's like, my copy has just gotten so much better, because of that. And because I was able to like, you're able to consistently go, you're doing that thing again, like keep like, and yeah. And then you were so kind as to introduce me to Paleo Hacks. And then I started working with them, and yeah, I mean, I'm still working with them, and like, they're such a well-oiled machine, and I like getting to see under the hood of that company is like really amazing. And yeah, and it's been great. It's all been good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, that's an incredible story. So we touched a little bit on mindset blocks. What would you care to share? What would you say is are some of the big realizations or movements or scripts that you had to unwire that produced a lot of change for you?
Yeah. So we got through a lot of stuff. Like in the months that we've been working together, it's like a cake, and it's like, there's like, at first we got through like some of the icing where it was like, I can't ask for money from clients. I don't know how to get a client. Like little stuff like that, like just like this weird, not weird, just like it was, scripts that I had, and I had to like move through like all of these layers of the cake. But I'm like, I feel like I'm like finally getting to like the filling of it now. Like
that's a really cool visual. Yeah.
But it's like, what, like, that's really like the heart of it, and the rest is kind of like just sort of scratching the surface. But the first things that I had to work through were really practical stuff, where it was just like, yeah, asking for money, that I wanted, saying no to things that didn't align with me and things I didn't want to do. Even just like applying for things, right? Like just like emailing somebody, applying for things. I had a lot of like communication scripts where I put like, I'm here, but offer owners are way up here, or like people I look up to. And it was like, I just couldn't talk to them like a real human. And that was holding me back a lot. And in hindsight, I'm like, I can see how that held me back in my tech career. I can see how that held me back as an actor. Like, it just like goes back so many layers. And that's why I say it's so important to tell like the whole story, because it's like, it was always there. It's just like, and no matter what you're doing, it's like, this stuff is so critical.
Yeah.
So that was really the stuff. And then now the kind of recurring theme and like what it is like finding my own voice and like what does that mean. And I know that there's layers underneath that I'm starting to understand what that is. And like finding my own voice is kind of like the intuitive, like I know that that's the thing, but then the actual specific scripts that are underneath that, I don't know what those things are yet, so it kind of went from like confidence. It was like the overarching thing was like, okay, I don't have any confidence, but actually what that meant was XYZ. And now it's like, oh, I don't know my authentic voice. I don't know how to use my authentic voice. And now it's like, okay, here's all the little pieces under that. And then I think that my goals of having my own offer are really, really tied in with this voice thing. It's like, that's what we're realizing. And so I think when I'm able, as I'm like clearing these things, and I've been taking action towards that, and it's actually like real in my life now. It's like it's happening. So so that's really cool. Yeah.
I'm excited to see what you discover in the filling of the filling, I'm excited to see what the next thing under the voice thing is, you know. I think it's going to be fun to find out together. So let's chat a little bit about like the state of the copywriting world. There's been a big change since kind of when I started. So when I started, just to give you guys a little bit of a historical lesson, I guess, is when I started, it was very decentralized. So there was no copy accelerator. There were no Facebook groups. Like I literally learned copy from watching a John Benson video on YouTube and clicking pause every few seconds to write down stuff. And then like I would write down the whole structure from a VSL and then go and try to replicate that and then show my mentor. And then that's how I did it. There were no templates. There were no training programs. There were a few books and like old newspaper ads, and that's how I learned. So nowadays there's a million people trying to tell you how to do copywriting, how to get clients and all that. Back then, I didn't know where to find the clients. There was old like forums called like Warrior Forum and ever. Even in the first few the months that you've been in the industry, Tiana, there's been great changes. What are some that you have seen?
Yeah, I mean, I'll echo that like it's so much more accessible now. And like that's great for me. Like I came in at a time where it was accessible, and like there are these kind of like people have sort of systematized it, and like there's like when I would like transcribe VSLs, but then I would like take somebody else's breakdown of a VSL, and then I would use their sections of how they broke it down and be like, okay, this they must be talking about this section of the VSL. They must be talking about this section, rather than kind of like going in blind. So totally agree. And then I mean, there's tons of Facebook groups. There's like tons of masterminds and stuff where like I was able to find my way in to get those clients. But it still comes down to like relationships and who you vibe with and whatever, and like knowing the direction you want to go and whatever. One thing that I have noticed in the short time that I've been in the industry is like, when I started, everyone was still like, okay, it's long form VSL, everything's long form VSL. And like now, because of the state of like media buying and like just keeping things on Facebook and stuff, it's like a lot more experimentation happened in terms of like e-com, more like long form direct response hybrids. And that's what the tanning thing was actually, like that we had mentioned before, is like that was an experiment in that direction. Not that I was like the first one to do it. There's like, I was following and seeing what many other people had already done. But it's like that it's relatively new to start doing that. And there's a lot more, like I'm noticing a lot more copywriters getting contracts to do that kind of thing than just straightforward like long form VSLs, although that's still around.
Yeah. I think it's the migration of if we were talking about macro scale, like people are paying to shorter attention span things. I think like in the world of TikTok, right, as the years continue and the older generations kind of phase out and the younger generations come in, it's a much I would guess I might, the only way I could really explain it is it's a more TikTok-y internet feel.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. And there's also this funny thing that like, okay, so when I came into the industry, like I came in as a UX designer, right? So I was designing, I was responsible for the experience and the interfaces of public facing websites and flows and, and so the obsession with like, things have to look good and be easy to use on the internet. Like everything has to be like, there's an element of like, it has to look nice. That's like really critical when you come to like, when it's like big brands, like the ones I was working with, it's like that stuff really matters. And so when I came in, I had to really fight a lot of that because it was like, well, and a lot of people do, it's like, these pages are like, the old school pages are just so ugly,
yeah.
right? It's like the fonts are all over the place. It's like basically not accessible because you can't read. It's like the colors are so hard to read. It's like the images are just insane. It's like not formatted well for mobile, like all this stuff. And so I really like was like, I think this is going to change. I think this is going to change because what I was already seeing that I was like, it matters so much, right? Like,
Yeah.
and so that's a change. Like now all the clients that I work with are like, they pay attention. They work with the designer quite a lot.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more attention to like, are all of it, like the words in the headlines, are all the first words capitalized, or like are the fonts all matching, are the are the images like nice images, or are they kind of shitty images, or like
prettier stuff instead of
prettier
uglier stuff.
Yeah. The spacing is such a big one. It's like, does this space, like people are actually willing to pay for designers now and stuff. So it's like, that's another change I'm seeing.
Cool. Which is cool. So recently I've also hired you to help coach my 0 to 5K program, which is for copyright beginners. How have you been finding that experience, and what are some common or things that stand out in your coaching experience?
Ooh, okay, this is a fun question. Okay, well, okay, two-parter answer. One is like my own evolution from like copywriter to somebody who can share what I've learned about copywriting is like a bit of a little, a little jump for me, like a little hurdle. So there was like a few scripts that I needed to like clear out there when it was like, okay, I can, like, I do have information that is valuable to these people, and like, so working through some of that. And that's like any like intermediate or like copywriter who kind of like advances a little bit, it's like you get to that stage where you get like faced with some of that stuff, but it's so fun. It's like, I love coaching. I think it's like, it brings me a lot of joy. And so I've been really loving that experience. And that's been kind of, yeah, I don't know, an interesting like personal learning thing where I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't know that this was part of something I loved, but I really love it. And then for students, I'm seeing a lot of just like the same scripts that I experienced, like all like things around like confidence, things around asking for money, being willing to apply for things, and like, the threat of rejection.
All the mindset stuff. You're seeing it now? Yeah.
Oh, I totally see it now. And it's like my lens on it now has really changed, because it's like everything, like, it's like learning the structure of an email is so possible. It's like, it doesn't actually take students that long to learn that, it takes, it's like the refining process takes like years always, right? But the actual like learning to write an email that's good enough for somebody to pay for is like, it doesn't actually take that long to take somebody from like never having written an email to being able to do that. Mm-hmm. But it takes a lot of work to be able to get people to like go and like send out their email to somebody and say, hey, I wrote you this email, or to say, hey, I'm charging, X amount for this email. That is really hard to get people to do. Or interestingly, it's the opposite, where it's like somebody will have kind of like a way too much confident, and they're underestimating the like the patience that you need to practice, right? And that's a whole different set of scripts. And it's like yeah, so it's just so interesting because you must have seen that in me too. Like the copywriter thinks it's like my copy's bad, my copy's bad, my copy is not good enough. But actually it's like your copy's fine. It's like your mindset.
Yeah.
But and it's funny because like you told me this, but I was like, yeah.
It's like bounced off.
I genuinely didn't understand it. I
Yeah.
genuinely was like, you just can't, right? It's just like, yeah, I just didn't know what you were talking about.
Yeah. So I just for people watching who've never been exposed to the mindset work we do, the stuff that's hardwired, like some of these belief blocks or emotional patterns, they're hardwired. Like I'm not good enough to write copy or charge X amount or whatever. It's hardwired into your subconscious, and that stuff is set there from your childhood. So the mindset work that we do, if I had to give a general primer of it, is that you have this little child running you, right? The child from your childhood is replaying certain emotional scripts as you interact with things in your day-to-day kind of life. Especially with copywriting, you're running some sort of script from your childhood for the copywriting, for interacting with clients. Usually you're interacting with clients the way you would interact with a parent or something in your childhood. And so the way you unwire all that, the stuff that's hardwired, is by closing your eyes and speaking to your inner child. So you literally just envision your child in front of you, and you talk to them, and you kind of reteach them or reparent them certain things to unwire those blocks. And that's kind of how that process works. How would you kind of describe your experience with the work?
Yeah. At first I just thought it was like I thought it was pretty wacky, and like it's like wacky is the only word, because I was like, I was like, okay, like it just sounds, when you're not used to like that kind of language and you don't have that relationship with yourself where you can like really like go inside and you're willing to like face that kind of like discomfort, it feels like all these triggers about like, this is stupid, this is woo woo, this is wacky, like all of those things come up, when in reality it's actually just like so practical. Like that's the thing that I didn't see initially, was like it's so practical, because it's like, I think like you can go to therapy for years because that feels like safe and real, as planted in like the real world, but then there's like, it's like, and I did a lot of that, but I was never really accessing like the heart of it, because it was still just like me, I was playing on the surface, when it was like, okay, just go inside and ask your child about it. You just get the answer immediately, and you're literally like you're just rewiring things. And then once you do that, you're like clearing out all these scripts that had controlled your decision making. And then what we talk about and what you said is like, then you have free will. Like then you actually have the ability to hear yourself, first of all, when you're like, do I want to do this? Do I want to? So let's say like a big client comes to you and they're like, hey, I want to hire you for the sales letter. I'm going to pay you $20K to do it. Go. It's like, there was like, even a few months ago, I would have been like, oh, $20K, I'm definitely going to take that. Like, that's crazy not to do that. But now if somebody asked me, I can genuinely say, I would be like, do I want to do this?
Yeah.
Like, actually bring me joy. And that is a totally different life experience, a completely different way of living. And it's like, it's so much more peaceful, and there's so much more opportunity there. And like, I can actually like, it's like, I mean, it's going to sound so dramatic, but it's like, I actually feel like I'm sort of uncovering the key to at least my happiness, like whatever that secret is about life. It's like, I think this is close to what it is. And
ooh, I like that.
yeah. And it's like, yeah, I think because we had kind of talked about what we might talk about here, and one of the things was like, what did we talk about that? Or I don't know, something about like, well, how do I define success, or like, what is success, or whatever. And I'm like, well, I used to define success by anything that I could like make tangible. So if it was like, you know, anything like a client is impressive, a certain amount of money, like I would have these markers. And I thought that that was like so critical to like me being happy, and to me being like a real copywriter, like running a business that matters. I don't know. And now it's like, I'm actually okay with like, if I made less, but I felt happier, like I can genuinely say that like, I'm okay with that. Like I still have big financial goals. Do not get me wrong. That is still something that like I find exciting, and I find it drives me. But it's like, I still would, I will not ever sacrifice my like actual enjoyment of my life and the work that I'm doing for that. So now it's like we talked about these money buckets. So there's like, is it a stress money bucket? Is it a happy money bucket? Is it a like anxiety money bucket? I used to put a lot into the anxiety bucket and the stress bucket. And now it's like, I've pretty much like cleared most of that out. And like, and now I'm like, oh, the coaching, right? I want to focus more on that. Cause like, even when I talk about it, it's like, it's so joyful for me. And like, I think I'm going to use that road to put more money in the bucket, right? I'm going to like open that channel a little bit. And then like, you know, doing the work with the tanning product really excites me. So I like pursued more opportunities with them, because that was like, wow, that really brings me so much joy to like work on these types of products and work with this team. And so I'm opening that channel, and I'm like filling the bucket here instead. And that's very freeing, right? That's like,
yeah, I love that. I love
pretty
that.
magical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always the way I don't actually tell like beginner copywriters this, but it's something that it's hard for beginner copywriters to understand, that if you see a lot of rich people and rich business owners, you'd be surprised how many problems they have. And that the money, it's hard for beginner copywriters to understand that when you do achieve success, or whatever the success is in your mind, and the money does come to you and a big chunk of money comes, that you're like, wait a minute, this doesn't feel like the way I thought it would feel. And it just brings new problems. Like they're better problems, but they're like newer problems, you know? So it's just something to be aware of and to kind of keep in mind, I guess, you know?
Well, and on the flip side of that, there are a lot of people who are making incredible amounts of money, and they also are very happy about it. And it's like, my model of who I like, the people that I model now is very different. And my like evaluation of who I look to for like, what path did they follow? Like, what did they do? What can I learn from that? It's like, I look to those people now instead of like just all people with money. I'm a little bit more discerning about like, because that's what makes sense for me.
Yeah,
Right.
That makes sense.
And that's like, and that's going to be different for somebody else. But like, it's really about going like, what makes sense for me? What do I actually want? And that's like,
that's
a really hard thing to do. It's like,
I love that. You know, I think it's like, there's like a trigger city, right? People are like, they're existing up here where they're thinking conscious thoughts, and there's all these triggers and scripts. And then underneath all that is your actual path that you may resonate with. And so it's like, you got to unwire and dig through all that to find that out. And I like what you said about rich people. It's like happy rich people, there's stressed rich people, there's all these different types of rich people. So, you know, looking at that and seeing like, oh, you know, whose life do I actually want to have, and what kind of life do I actually do? It like resonates with me. What do I actually like doing if I take the money out of it, you know?
Yeah. Okay. Can I share? And I shared this with you recently. Like I heard, so Amber Spears was on Chris Haddad's podcast recently. And she said this thing, like, she was like, if you build a business out of anger and out of like a need to prove something, which a lot of people do, and it moves you quickly, that is a type of fuel, and it will get you there. But when you scale that business, like the only way to keep that business afloat is to continue being angry and to continue feeling like you need to prove something. Which in our language is like, if you build a business on triggers, you essentially have to keep those triggers alive if you want to sustain the business.
Yeah.
Versus if you build a business out of joy. I love coaching. Out of like, I love this team. I love this product. I love that I'm helping people in this way. You, in order to sustain that business, you have to keep that sentiment alive. And that's like, isn't that so much more wonderful? Like in every possible way, isn't that like such a better way to exist? And I loved how she said that.
I'll build on top of this. And the way I think about marketing is so different now. Like it used to be, I was kind of engrossed in this world of split tests and like tinkering, like tinkering with this word or this headline or let's split test this and all these like very mechanical things. And the way I've kind of built my coaching business is totally different. It's like I launch without upsells. I willingly give up money because I believe the core of my business is based on, I want it to be a win-win interaction. Like I want people to come in, get value, and then become a walking testimonial. That's kind of like my business model. I have no paid media. I have like so much of the stuff I do is so against like traditional direct response, because I really don't care like if there's a few more percentage points on conversion, as long as like the copy is like decent. I don't want it to be I don't care about being perfect. I want it to go out there, and then I want the product delivery to be so amazing that it's, because I've seen like people scale to incredible heights with terrible marketing and terrible copy. I'm like, how the fuck did they do that? And it's because of this. I think it's because of this principle. And like religions, one of the guys I follow, Yogananda, he built millions and millions of people following, knowing nothing about marketing, and how do they do it? It's because people follow value. So that's kind of the philosophy I built the business on. And sure, I like playing around with copy. I like playing around with marketing and kind of tweaking all those dials and whatever. But I haven't done a single split test in my business. I'm focusing on product delivery and delivering an incredible transformation and experience. And I think the acquisition kind of takes care of itself after that.
Yeah, that is really cool. And I do feel like I feel like there's a weird like okay, this is definitely just a theory and like something that I'm working through, but like I think it's like when a lot of business owners or people get to a certain point, it's like then they're like they want to move it to an e-com kind of style. They want to move it to like a brand. I kind of think that's what they're talking about, is like there's like this impulse to like, okay, I've just white labeled this product for like X amount of years, and now I want to like try to build like a community, and they like there's a desire to do that, and so that's like one way to do it. I don't know if that's true. It's just like something that I've like heard at least over the last like 2 years of like watching at least the offer owners who I'm close to like go through that process. Like they talk a little bit differently now than they used to me anyways.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. I think a lot of people start with the marketing, and then at a certain point their interest kind of shifts more towards, I think the longer people like are in the game and the longer they have their business, the more it kind of shifts away from money driven to some sort of value driven business, I think. And I think to be fair, like I think paid media makes a big difference. If you're on paid media, you have to tweak the dials. You have to get in there. And if I were to launch on paid media, I would have to do that too. And I would have to split test just to get the numbers matching. But it seems like to me, that seems like it's in the stress money bucket. Because paid media is like, it's like, ooh, like I'm spending, $1,000, $2,000 a day on paid media. Those numbers have to match up. And it's a very stressful anxiety induced thing. Whereas right now, like all my acquisition is 100% automated and free. Like I have 40 people joining the Facebook group a day, on autopilot, you know, and I don't pay for it. So
I mean, you essentially did like a lot of organic marketing for the past several years.
Yeah.
So it's
a
like
lot of,
yeah.
A lot of it without me knowing. I was just kind of posting stuff I liked and I liked writing about, and
because it just was true and it just like aligns and makes so much sense. It's like
I don't know. It's interesting stuff to think about, like interesting business models, you know. Yeah.
I mean, it's certainly like these conversations that we've had of like definitely are influencing the way that like I'm thinking about approaching my own, you know, I like offer and business and what that looks like. And my measure of success for that, like all of those things have been affected, you know.
I like, you know, my existence in the business world, I want it to be to put something out in the world that's like awesome, that like helps people and that people are excited about, and I feel good about that. Like if I'm at a point where like if I put out something that doesn't do that and it's a win-lose or a lose-win, and I put it out there, people pay for it and they don't, and it's like some people get like, I don't know, the worse it is for them, the worse I feel about it, and I don't want to make that money. Like I don't like keep that bad blood money away from me, you know. Keep the bad money away, you know. Like I don't want that karma, you know. So it's kind of like different in the way I think now. I don't know. That's just interesting to think about.
This is really interesting.
Yeah. So cool. Well, it's about an hour. Talked about some interesting stuff. Thank you so much for coming on, and you know, it's been a pleasure coaching you and interacting with you and just being friends, and seeing your growth is so awesome. And the way you talk about stuff now is like, I was getting goosebumps the whole like interview, just listening to you like say certain stuff. And I was like, oh man, that's so sick.
It's so different.
It's so different. And and it's been less than a year. So I'm excited to see where it goes and where things lead us and our group of friends and copywriters in the future. Just a preview for everybody on YouTube. We got a group of copywriters, 7 or 8 of us, going to Greece in August. We're going to Mykonos just to do kind of co-working and hang out and partying on the island. So a few things: if you are in Greece and in Mykonos between August 8th and August 23rd, hit me up on Facebook and maybe we can meet up and just chat and meet each other. What else do I want to say about that? Oh, keep tuned, because I know that my wife Angel wants to film a video and have our video editor splice it together so we have like a memento. So we film all our shenanigans that we're going to get into. Fun. So
yeah. Thanks, Ning. It's been great, and obviously, I mean, I think it speaks for itself, like the way that I speak about it now. It's like life-changing stuff, and you know, on a professional and super personal level. And it's awesome. And you're a fucking great friend, you know.
Thank you. You are as well.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right, YouTube. If you like this interview, you want more of it, comment. Let me know, and I'll do more interviews with friends and past students, and smash all the buttons, you know, like the like and the subscribe or whatever. And I'll see you in another video.